to Lake Winnipeg.
It's so upsetting. It's so disconcerting. This should not be happening. Our lake is at risk anyways, and to have this kind of raw sewage pouring into it is just not okay.
Winnipeg Water and Waste Chair Brian Mays says the city is working on a long-term solution.
And that's obviously not a viable long-term solution when you're saying to people, hey, can you just shower instead of having a bath? This is not a long-term solution. It's a short-term measure.
The city currently has one pump working on the bypass system, but it's not enough to keep up with the flow. Crews are working on getting a second pump working within the next few days. That system will likely be in place well into next year as the city works on a permanent solution. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The Provincial Minister of Environment and Climate Change says her department has launched an investigation into the sewage spill with the Environmental Compliance and Enforcement Branch. One person is dead following a house fire in Glenwood. Fire crews were called to a duplex in the 100 block of Vivian Avenue around 4:20 this morning. When they arrived, they saw smoke coming out of one of the units. The city says they managed to put the fire out quickly and they kept it from spreading. When firefighters got inside to search the building, they found the body of a person who had died. The fire is under investigation. A Winnipeg man who was switched at birth 68 years ago and sent home with the wrong family is now one step closer to reclaiming his lost identity. CBC's Bryce Hoy reports on the latest step in an emotional journey.
It's been a challenging journey since Edward Ambrose found out through a family DNA test that he wasn't, by birth, an Ambrose after all. But he's also recovering a part of himself that he didn't know existed. And last week, Manitoba Métis Federation President David Chartrand handed the 68-year-old Ambrose his Métis citizenship card.
I had to cry, I was officially a Métis, which for thinking what I was growing up was not that. I grew up as Ukrainian. Getting the card, it was pulling me to who I am.
Ambrose and Richard Beauvais learned in 2022 that they were sent home with the wrong families from a hospital in Arborg, Manitoba in 1955. The revelation came as a result of Ambrose's sister taking a DNA test. That revealed the pair weren't biological siblings, but she and Beauvais were. Beauvais was raised in a Métis community near Lake Manitoba. He's a residential day school survivor who was taken from his family during the 60s scoop. But in 2022, he learned he was actually of Ukrainian, Jewish, and Polish ancestry. Meanwhile, Ambrose grew up on a farm in Rembrandt, Manitoba, with a loving Ukrainian family. Learning that he wasn't Ukrainian was a shock, but now he's embracing his newfound identity.
The grief of what went through, that'll always be there. You'll never walk away from that. But for now that I know who I am and I know who my biological sisters and brothers are it's a step forward.
Chartrand said it was touching to be able to hand Ambrose his Métis citizenship card.
He was so proud to come home, proud to be who he is. We're talking 6 decades. These 2 children were misplaced. So a lot of healing is going to have to take place.
Part of his healing has come from attending Métis cultural events, like a ceremony at St. Boniface Cathedral for Louis Riel Day on Monday. It's also come from bonding with his biological siblings. Ambrose never got a chance to meet his biological parents before they died. He says there's something that would help his healing, an apology.
That would release an awful lot. So far, it seems to be very hard to do. I don't understand why.
An apology and compensation were requested from the Progressive Conservative government, and in 2022, the men were told the province had no legal liability. Now, in a statement yesterday, Health Minister Uzoma Asagwara said that they understand, quote, recognition of this wrong is important. They said they look forward to having a private meeting with the 2 men in the near future. Bryce Hoy, CBC News, Winnipeg.
One of Manitoba Hydro's generating stations on the Nelson River is not producing any power right now. The GenPeg station is offline for inspections and testing. All 6 turbines were powered down earlier this month after a repair job revealed a unit in bad condition. GenPeg is 45 years old. Its generating capacity is about 2% of Hydro's overall capacity to produce electricity. About 30 people who lived in an apartment building on Furby Street that caught fire last week now have to move. Geraldine Flett has been staying at a Winnipeg hotel since the fire in the building. She says she has no family in Winnipeg. Figuring out where to go and what to do next has been overwhelming. Flett says the Red Cross gave her money to buy things like food and clothes while she stays at the hotel, but that help only lasts so long.
Would like someone to come and give us some options. Come and drop off some clothes, or, you know, so simple things that will help. There's a lady here that doesn't have shoes still.
And that's how life was at 85. You know, it's like a small little town of people that knew each other and helped each other out.
The fire sent 5 people to hospital. It also left smoke and water damage across the 5-story building. Groups that help newcomers settle in Winnipeg say the city isn't living up to its own inclusion policy. They want the city to put more money in the budget and recruit more staff to make newcomers feel welcome. CBC's Zubina Ahmed explains.
Advocate groups for immigrants aren't happy with Winnipeg's plan for an inclusive city. In February 2020, the city of Winnipeg adopted its first newcomer welcome and inclusion policy. But Ruben Garang from Immigration Partnership Winnipeg says it's not enough. He wants the city to spend more money on inclusion by putting more in this year's budget.
We continue to call for the following: the creation of 2 new positions, one for coordinating and implementing the policy, and another for developing and implementing the newcomer youth employment strategy.
According to the mayor's office, the budget includes 1 full-time position assigned to the policy. The advocate groups are calling for 2 more. Vicky Sinclair from Manitoba Association of Newcomer Service Organizations, or MANSO, says 1/4 of people in Winnipeg are immigrants. And it's not just the responsibility of the federal government, but also of the city of Winnipeg to help them settle.
Because it can't be done for free, and no other city is managing to do it for free. So we realise there's a lot of competition for city dollars, but we think this is a high priority with 25% of the population being immigrants, and those numbers growing every year.
Abdikir Ahmed is the executive director of the Aurora Family Centre. He says newcomers' contributions aren't just economic.
When you come from another place, you bring not only yourself, but you bring diversity, you bring the experience of other places. All the businesses that are growing, the city's income, the taxes, all these are things that are brought in by newcomers. The skills that they bring, all these are things that we bring to this city as newcomers.
Ahmed gives the example of Folklorama that brings out the diversity of the population.
When we have Folklorama, we talk about the diversity of our city, the beauty of how our city looks like, how we have this, mosaic of environment. Unfortunately, we talk about the mosaic and diversity of our city without putting money into it.
A statement from the mayor's office says the mayor meets with Immigration Partnership Winnipeg and routinely meets with groups on ways to make the city a more welcoming home for new residents. Zubina Ahmed, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, speaking of inclusion, about 100 kids are playing together right now at Fort White Alive, all part of the 7th annual Cold City Warm Hearts event. The event is for newcomers from the Immigrant and Refugee Community Organization of Manitoba, or IRCOM, and inner city kids from Rossbrook House from Winnipeg. It just got started. CBC's Jim Agapito is there right now. Jim, what's it like out there?
Hi, Janet. Well, I have 2 special people here. I have Patty Manville from
Rossbrook House.
And someone very special here. Introduce yourself.
My name is Asher Coombs.
So this is such a special event, and I'm gonna have to ask you, how excited are you to be here today?
I'm really excited. It's a good opportunity to get out, have some fun with the kids, and just enjoy the outdoors.
Now, I understand that this is your first time here to this event. Tell me, what are you expecting to experience today?
Definitely some fears, like I think I might have to face my fear on this thing here. It's pretty tall. I'm scared of heights. But I think I'm expecting just to have a good, fun time and just, enjoy the outdoors today.
Now, Patty, this event is a special, thing between Rossberg House and the kids from Earcom. Can you tell me why is that so important to your organization?
Yeah. So it started 7 years ago, with the exception of the COVID years, definitely. But it was a great opportunity to strengthen our community, to come together, because our kids, they get to go to school together during the school day, but they don't necessarily hang out after school. So this is a great opportunity for the kids to be able to come out in this beautiful space, to be able to have fun, have laughs, and just get outside in the open air.
Now, Patty, this event has been happening for 7 years, so obviously the kids must be excited about it. What has been the hype around it? What has the atmosphere been like leading up to this event?
Yeah. For the kids, they're excited to come out and play. They don't realize that the outdoors is so close, because a lot of times they don't get the opportunity to come outside of the neighborhood. And this is an excellent, it's so close and so accessible that Fort White Alive is absolutely wonderful to be able to host an event like this for our kids who are coming from the inner city of Winnipeg.
Now, this is your first time here, so I've got to ask, it's nature. It's nature. You're about to play in nature. How do you feel about that? Like, how do you feel about being here and being able to participate in this event?
I'm very grateful, because that's not really, a lot of kids don't really have an opportunity to come out here and actually enjoy the outdoors. And we came on a good day. It's not cold, which is good, because we're going to be here a long time and enjoying ourselves. But yeah, I'm really thankful.
There's about 100 kids that are going to come down here tonight. Now, I got to ask, you're going to be able to meet and play with 100 kids. How does that make you feel, and what are some of the things you want to do with them?
I just want to put some smiles on their faces. There's a lot of stations here. We have the toboggan sled, a bunch of other things to do. Definitely put some smiles on their faces and just have a good time tonight.
Now, Patty, I got to ask, this experience, what is the takeaway that you want, everyone here, just like him over here, to experience from this event?
I want all the kids to be able to experience all of the fun events, the snowshoeing, the bannock making, but also getting together and with their friends outside of school and outside the community, and just let the stressors go of what's going on outside of here and just come and just be kids.
Well, there you have it. What a special event here, at Fort White Alive, Cold City, warm hearts. It's going on till 7:30. This is Jim Agapito from Fort White Alive. Back to you, Janet.
Thank you very much, Jim. Well, they've got a lovely mild night for tobogganing and playing at Fort White, but that lovely mild weather is not very good for the river trail. The Forks has officially closed it for the season. The Nestawaya Trail was open a total of only 9 days this year. That's the shortest time it's ever been open, aside from the pandemic winter in 2020 when it didn't open at all. The Forks says this mild weather, the fluctuating river levels of well, have just made it so difficult to maintain and open the trail. It got to be 600 meters long this season, the shortest it's ever been. The shortest period of time open, the shortest trail itself, just such a mild winter.
Mild winter and the fluctuating temperatures, Janet, going to continue, which really won't do anything for the river levels and, ice making at all over the next week or so. So looking at satellite radar, you can see that we're under a partly cloudy sky here in southern Manitoba. We did see a few stray flurries across parts of southern Manitoba, but this is the beginnings here of that low pressure system in northern Manitoba that I was talking about last night that will bring some light accumulating snow to parts of northern Manitoba tonight, which we'll talk about in a little bit. As you can see, we do have still a few stray flurries making their their way across southern Manitoba. Expect that to continue as we get into the night tonight. And you can see as we get through the overnight period that low tracks across northern Manitoba, starting with a partly cloudy sky in southern Manitoba tomorrow. But even by the time we get to 6 o'clock in the morning tomorrow, the bulk of that snow has moved off into northeastern Manitoba. Generally about 5 centimeters coming in a swath from Tadoule Lake and Brochet through Thompson, Gillam, Shamattawa, and the Island Lake region. That brings us a chance of a flurry as we get through the later part of Thursday, maybe even as early as Friday morning, but otherwise we're looking at mainly a mix of sun and clouds as we head through the later part of the week and into the weekend once again. Even a chance of some more snow as we head into the early part of the weekend for northern Manitoba. The winds in southern Manitoba at least going to be the story tomorrow. So winds have been fairly calm across much of the southern part of the province, at least today anyway. That will change as we get into the day on Thursday as that low tracks across the north, shifting things around, bringing us a westerly and a southwesterly flow. By Thursday at 6 o'clock in the morning, you can see winds out of the west gusting up to about 40 in Winnipeg, even stronger through the south central part of the province, Portage la Prairie and Morden Winkler. And that continues as we get through the later part of the morning tomorrow, even seeing gusts start to taper off a smidge as we get through the later afternoon and into the early evening, but still a little bit on the gusty side as we get through the day on Thursday. -3 is as good as we got in Winnipeg. Pressure is rising. Northwest winds at 6. We'll see light winds as we get through the night tonight. Overnight temperature at -9 in Winnipeg, a partly cloudy sky. For the morning, we're looking at a partly cloudy -5. Northwest winds at 20. We start to see the winds picking up as we get through the day tomorrow. Slim chance of flurries through the afternoon tomorrow. Otherwise, a breezy one. Those north and northwest winds gusting up to 40 through the afternoon. Friday, we dip down to -7 once again under a mix of sun and clouds. And then we bounce back up to +6 for Saturday before dropping to about the freezing mark by the time we get to Sunday and Monday, Janet, with a chance of light snow on Monday. And this hints at what will be our next weather maker as we get into the later part of next week.
Thanks very much, Riley.
You're welcome.
Well, it is tax time again. You can now start filing your income tax return, whether you do so online or on paper. There are several changes in store for this tax filing season. Enoch Omalolu is a personal finance expert in Winnipeg and founder of Savvy New Canadians. Thank you for your time today.
Thanks for having me on.
So many people have been working from home, either full-time or still part-time. Big change for them this tax year. What do they need to know?
Well, for 2020, 2021, and 2022, they could file their tax, they could claim home office expenses by just going with a flat rate amount. So if you work from home more than 50% of the time for, say, 4 consecutive weeks or more, you could just pick the number of days you work from home and then multiply that by $2 per day and claim that on your taxes. So you could claim up to $500. This year, that is changing for 2023 because now the CRA is requiring everyone to go back to using the detailed format, which means you have to get a form from your employer, the form saying that, okay, yes, this person does work from home. Yes, they do incur expenses on their own as part of their employment. And in addition to that, you also have to keep documentation. So you have to track your expenses. It's a lot more complicated than the temporary flat rate method that was allowed during the pandemic. So for 2023 tax return, you definitely are going to be putting in a lot more work, if you will, in order to claim home office expenses.
If there's someone watching who might think they need help filing their income tax, do they have to pay a fee or are there free options?
So it will depend on what their taxes look like. If you have a straightforward, simple tax, moderate income, you can potentially use a free tax clinic. The CRA does organize some of these in various localities, so you can use a free tax clinic. If you are comfortable with online tax software, and again, you have a modest income, you have a straightforward tax filing to do, there are tax software that do allow you to file for free. So you have like the Wealth Simple Tax, that TurboTax. Even you file, they do allow free tax filing. If, on the other hand, your taxes are a bit more complicated, so you do have lots of deductions. Let's say you have rental income, you have investment income. I think in most cases you would either go with an accountant. You can walk into some of these brick and mortar tax filing companies like H&R Block, or you can use an online tax software, but then you would, in this case, potentially be going for the paid option.
There's a first-time home buyers savings account now. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so that's another new thing for 2023 is Canadians are used to the RRSP. So for your RRSP, where you make a contribution to your retirement savings plan, you can deduct that from your taxable income. So it lowers the taxable income, you get a tax refund, and then when you start withdrawing funds in retirement, you now pay taxes on those contributions to your account. The same thing applies to, something similar applies to the first home savings account. In this case, starting in 2023, you could save, say, up to $8,000 in a first home savings account that you can put towards paying or making a down payment on a house. And then the good part of it is that you can deduct that contribution from your taxes or from your taxable income, lower your taxable income, and save on taxes that way. So if you have contributed in 2023 to a first home savings account, you can definitely go ahead and deduct that from your taxable income, lower your taxes for the last tax year, and even better than the RRSP is that when you withdraw these funds to pay for a home, you don't pay taxes on it. So the growth, the investment growth is going to be tax-free as well.
Oh, that's a nice shelter for people. Thank you for telling us about it. Thank you for your time today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me on.
Israel's most powerful ally appeared today before the International Criminal Court of Justice. The U.S. weighed in on a case that calls into question the legality of Israel's occupation of the Palestinian territories. The latest on this story when CBC Winnipeg News returns. At the International Court of Justice today, the U.S. has been supporting Israel's occupation of land claimed by Palestinians. The court is hearing arguments on a 2022 request from the UN General Assembly for an opinion on Israel's occupation. The U.S. says the court could not order the immediate withdrawal of Israeli troops from occupied territory without taking into account Israel's security needs, very much in the focus of the war between Israel and Hamas, where there are fresh warnings about mass starvation now in Gaza and new concerns about getting humanitarian aid into the territory. CBC's Abby Kuavasan brings us the latest.
The World Food Program says Gaza is hanging on by a thread, but it's forced to suspend life-saving aid to northern Gaza once again. The aid agency says civil order has broken down in the north, and trucks that are permitted and able to reach the area are quickly surrounded by desperate, hungry people. The UN says about 300,000 Palestinians are still in the north despite months of ongoing Israeli bombardment and rely on this aid to survive. At least 67 people have been killed in Gaza overnight into Wednesday, according to the Associated Press. The AP says its reporters saw dozens of bodies being brought to a hospital in Deir al-Balah. In Khan Yunis, the World Health Organization says it has been able to evacuate 32 critically wounded patients from Nasser Medical Complex, which is the largest hospital in the south. It was raided by the IDF last week, and the WHO is accusing Israel of impeding access to the facility, which is no longer functioning.
We were shocked what we actually saw in Nasser Medical Complex. There's waste everywhere. Electricity was not working. Parts of the hospital are damaged and some severely damaged.
Sexual and gender-based violence remains a major concern in this conflict. The United Nations is investigating reports of rape by Hamas militants on October 7th. A UN report now says there are credible allegations against Israeli forces of human rights violations in Gaza, including rape and strip searches of Palestinian women and girls. Israel denies this. A spokesperson says the United Nations is motivated by hate of the Israeli state. Abby Kuavasan, CBC News, Berlin.
Ottawa is launching its $50 million plan to support Black public servants. Money will go toward career development, leadership training, and recruiting more Black counselors to provide mental health support. This comes after a 2022 survey in which 11% of Black employees said they'd experienced discrimination on the job. It also showed that Black employees were concentrated in the lower pay range.
So from a pay equity standpoint, from a systemic discrimination standpoint, we have work to do.
The funding will go to more than 90 federal departments and agencies. Alabama's Supreme Court has ruled that frozen embryos have human rights. The decision has already sent a chill through fertility clinics in the state, and other people worry it could lead to legal challenges elsewhere. CBC's Richard Madden has the story.
The landmark decision by Alabama's state Supreme Court could potentially end fertility treatments statewide after its unprecedented ruling that frozen embryos are children and have the same legal protections under state law.
It was shocking, and I knew immediately what the implications of it were.
Alabama's court decision follows a lawsuit by 3 sets of parents who sued their medical provider when their frozen embryos were accidentally destroyed. A trial court rejected their wrongful death claim, but the state's high court disagreed, with its chief justice using quotes from the Bible about the sanctity of unborn life to justify the decision. This could have major ramifications to those seeking fertility treatments like in vitro fertilization or IVF, because that procedure uses as many eggs as possible to get a successful pregnancy. Some doctors in that state now fear potential legal risks if they would face wrongful death lawsuits when they discard unused embryos.
If this fertilized egg is now a child, can we freeze them? Who is potentially criminally liable? Is it the people who created those embryos? Maybe it's the embryologist, or maybe it's somebody in the fertility clinic. We simply don't know.
Now, a religious group in Florida is looking to follow Alabama's lead, a move that could dramatically restrict access to fertility treatment in more parts of the country. The backdrop to all this is the overturning of Roe v. Wade 2 years ago, which returned abortion and reproductive rights back to each individual state to decide. Alabama has since banned abortion completely, and according to its state court, its ruling on protecting embryos was consistent with protecting unborn children under state law. Critics are calling this a terrifying development, the White House saying these are devastating consequences from Republican leaders who are undermining access to reproductive care. President Joe Biden is looking to make women's rights and abortion access a central issue in November's election, and he'll likely raise this Alabama court ruling on the campaign trail. Richard Madden, CBC News, Washington.
Calls to ban certain books is on the rise in Canada. So too is opposition to any bans. We'll look at this issue coming up. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. The debate we've seen over possibly banning books that we've seen happening south of the border is actually gaining steam here in Canada too. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson looks at why access to some books has been restricted in this country and how authors are pushing back.
At this school west of Toronto, keeping a well-stocked library is about more than just education.
This is not a really very advantaged community, and so a lot of my students aren't necessarily going to travel the world. And so books and story may be the only place that they're going to be able to do that.
But maintaining that range of voices for kids to experience has been increasingly under threat. Late last year, children's author Danny Ramadan had his book taken off the open shelves in the Waterloo Catholic schools. It was only available upon request and with the librarian providing the Catholic context. The book, A Tale of a Syrian-Canadian Girl and Her Family, featured a character based on Ramadan himself, a gay uncle.
I expected the book to be banned in Florida. I just was extremely shocked when I found out that it was banned here.
Librarians say the majority of challenges came from parents concerned about sexuality or gender-diverse themes in books.
There's even been a few cases where the challenges to books came from those very communities depicted in the books.
That's what happened to author David A. Robertson's book, The Great Bear. Robertson is Cree, and 2 Cree foster children are the heroes of his story. But some of the people who objected to it were also Indigenous, saying the book perpetuated harmful stereotypes. As a result, the book was temporarily pulled off the shelves in the Durham Region School Board.
Oftentimes, though, what happens is that the challenges come from a place where there hasn't been a real in-depth study of the literature being done, and so it's coming from a place of ignorance.
This expert says that no matter where the criticism comes from, Canadian school libraries have a robust review procedure that should be followed and knee-jerk reactions avoided.
You know, we're not trying to defend every book to remain in the system, but what we want is people to go through the right process.
Thanks in part to the media attention the bans got, both Robertson and Ramadan's books are now back on the shelves in the school boards that restricted them. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
You know, this has been a relatively mild winter for most of Canada, not just us. And yes, that's been a letdown for people who'd like to use the winter trail on the river. But it's been a boon for people who work outside, especially in construction. CBC's Natalia Goodwin has that story.
Ottawa may look like a winter wonderland after the recent snow and cold temperatures, but most of this season has looked like this, warm and a bit soggy. That means roofer Byron Bustillo has been able to get more shingles down this winter. Normally, he'd only be able to work 2 to 3 days a week, sometimes less.
I would have had to have stopped at some point during the winter because we just can't, like, things start to break and stuff. Whereas this winter, it's just been mild, so we've just been continuing, and looks like we'll be done just before the springtime.
Bustillo says he can work in most temperatures and snow can easily get blown off a roof, but dry weather makes his job more safe.
Just makes it slippery, like you're on a rope obviously, but like your angles have to be tighter because you can't be swinging around and sliding right off the roofs.
And it's not just purely outside jobs that are getting ahead. Stephen Sever runs Sever Contracting. He's been able to avoid pushing jobs that would normally have to wait until summer.
We usually stop cutting windows out in November, but because of the mild weather, we can continue to do it basically up to now. We finished a deck in December, January, because the weather was great.
Ottawa has not only been warm, there's been less snow too. Just over 93 centimeters of snow has fallen since December 1st. Over the same time period last year, about 222 centimeters of snow fell. The Ottawa Construction Association says the winter doesn't really stop the work, but a milder winter does help.
It just impacts productivity, it impacts performance of equipment, so what you're seeing is they can deliver more construction per day when it's easy going than when it's extreme. So and there's less time lost on preparing the site for the day's activities.
DeVries says that productivity trickles down to the worker too, as there's only so much a human body can do in frigid conditions. But it's not just about productivity. DeVries says a milder winter means construction sites don't have to be heated as much, meaning some contractors could save some money. Natalia Goodwin, CBC News, Ottawa.
In Alberta, last summer's record-setting wildfire season has never really ended. Hard to believe, but there are still nearly 150 fires smoldering away in Alberta and also in British Columbia. Some of them also burn in the Northwest Territories. They're known as zombie fires. They burn just below the surface, feeding on carbon-rich soils like peat. Researchers say the spike in this type of fire is unusual, and it signals the potential for a very active spring. Weather conditions will be a deciding factor. Western Canada continues to face drought-like conditions. We don't get much snow, we could be in trouble. In Alberta, crews are actively fighting the fires, and more personnel are being deployed. Our weather specialist, Riley Lachuk, joins us once again. Now, we are seeing some precipitation movement.
Yeah, we are seeing some precipitation, but not in the parts of our province, at least, that are needing it the most. South central Manitoba comes to mind. But yeah, some parts of Manitoba seeing some snow. We'll time that out for you as we look at the next 24 hours in northern Manitoba. I showed you the cloud deck earlier, and some of that snow starting to move into the Thompson and Lynn Lake and Brochet regions. That will start to move through as we get into the overnight period. So as we look at first thing in the morning through Thursday, you can see most of that snow already moving toward northeastern Manitoba, but still some lingering snow through the Norway House region, through the Island Lake, God's Lake region, and up into the Shamattawa area. That brings us just a chance of flurries through southern Manitoba. In terms of accumulation, really not a lot to speak about. Generally, we're looking at about 4 or 5 centimeters of snow at the most by the supper hour tomorrow through northern Manitoba. Maybe a centimeter through Barons River and the Norway House region. -3 was what we got to in Winnipeg this afternoon, and Eli as well, -3 as we head into the supper hour. -4 in Dauphin, -2 in Swan River, and -10 in Norway House. Colder surge of air through the far northern part of Manitoba. Temperatures close to that -30 mark once again through the Churchill region. Could see some very cold wind chills tonight, which we'll talk about in just a moment. As we look at the forecast for northwestern Ontario tonight, we're looking at temperatures around that -10 mark. Partly cloudy skies through the night tonight. Same for southeastern Manitoba. Temperatures around -8, -9 for the capital region, -7 through the Arborg and Peguis region. Melita looking at a low of -8, as is Brandon, -5 in Swan River. The western part of Manitoba could see some patchy fog through the night tonight, so keep that in mind. It doesn't look like anything dense, but certainly could see some fog patches on highways tonight. Chance of flurries through Flin Flon and the Pas, and this is the region where we see that snow moving through tonight. 5 to 10 centimeters in Thompson. Wind chill tonight, -46 in Churchill. That means frostbite on exposed skin in minutes. We'll see gusty northwest winds in Churchill tomorrow, -24 degrees. Otherwise, a clearing sky. The Pas OCN at -5 tomorrow afternoon. -1 in both Swan River and Dauphin, and getting above 0 again through Melita and Brandon into the capital region. Temperatures around the freezing mark through the Interlake. +4 in Emerson, +2 in Steinbach. A mix of sun and clouds. Very some chance of a flurry through the afternoon tomorrow. Same with northwestern Ontario, Janet. Temperatures around the freezing mark, -3 in Red Lake.
Thanks, Riley.
You're welcome.
You know, it's estimated more than 1 trillion Lego pieces have been made since those colorful plastic blocks went into production back in 1947. Now, a very rare piece has turned up at a thrift store warehouse in Pennsylvania.
There's 30 of the gold ones. They do make some silver ones and some plutonium ones.
It's known as a bionicle Lego mask, found in a donation of jewelry. As you just heard, one of 30 made of 14-karat gold. Originally, these exotic metal pieces were given to Lego employees as gifts, or they were used as prizes in contests. This one's up for auction. Bidding is currently more than $11,000 US, and the thrift store Goodwill says $5,000 would have been a record-setting sale price. It is the largest single-elimination basketball tournament in Canadian university basketball history, and it's right here in Winnipeg. We'll have more on the Canada West men's basketball tournament at the U of M coming up. You're watching CBC. The Canada West men's basketball playoffs started today at the University of Manitoba. The winner of this single elimination tournament gets to claim the title Best in the West. CBC's Jim Agapito stopped by Bison practice at the U of M recently ahead of this tournament.
What gets you open is this, and then the ball gets thrown. It's a huge event for not only university sport, but our sporting community in general, right? It's the first ever in Canadian history where we've hosted a 12-team playoff tournament, single elimination knockout, very similar to U.S. March Madness style. Teams playing for a right to go to national championship.
Some of the highest quality college basketball in Canada, all in one place for like 5 days straight, so it'll be pretty exciting.
Guys are ready to go, and we're certainly prepared for any team that we could play. Yeah, it's been a long season here getting to this point, and we're ready to go.
First time the whole tournament's been in Winnipeg. Last year we came so close to making nationals and winning it all, so now we got home court advantage. I think it'd be unbelievable.
The same as any kind of game, you're really just focused on our game plan, on executing what we want to do to perform at our highest level. I think all of our preparation to this point has led us up to this moment, and it's not so much about the moment, but about all the preparation that you've done sort of in the year and years leading up to this point.
Any one of these teams in the conference can beat anybody.
You have Brandon, you have the U of W, you have the Bisons. Tell me, there's a little bit of rivalry here in Manitoba. What does it mean for a win against them or to win this tournament?
Yeah, I mean, there's no question there's some rivalry, but we don't play out of those teams right off the bat. All three of us have very good competitive teams, so I think you're going to see some great basketball, not only of local teams, but also across Canada. So University of Victoria is the #1 ranked team in the country. UBC is the #4 ranked team in the country. So we have some very, very good basketball going to be played here this week.
Regardless of who it is, it's going to be a great game. It's going to be like some of the best athletes in college athletes in Canada, playing for it all.
We've got a lot of guys who are definitely going to contribute here, and I think one thing I've seen in these types of situations are the best players are often need to be your best players, but there's going to be some role guys who are really going to step up and perform that are going to make the difference for us. Last year when we hosted playoffs, it was one of the premier sporting events in our city. So you're going to see a packed crowd, an incredible environment. I would encourage people to come out and get a taste of university basketball. All right, I'm going to stand right here.
Okay, so
all right, Jim.
One takeaway.
One takeaway. Make sure your hands are positioned under the ball.
Okay.
Make sure you lift it up. Your shooting hand gets underneath the ball, right? Follow through at the target. Okay?
At the target.
And use your legs.
And
right?
use my legs.
Good.
So
okay. Gotta get in rhythm. Okay? I'm gonna toss you the ball. Get step at the 3-point line. I'm gonna toss you the ball. Okay? Just try to do it in one fluid motion. You
Coach,
ready?
I got this.
Right. Okay, here we go.
Oh my man.
Not quite. Little left, but we'll keep working on it.
Thanks so much.
So close. Okay, not close at all. Today, Brandon beat Saskatchewan 62-55. They play Victoria tomorrow. Today, Manitoba unveiled the team it's sending to the upcoming Special Olympics National Winter Games in Calgary.
So I think that we need to acknowledge all of the hard work that goes into this. It's not just skill and talent, it's also a lot of training. And that is for the coaches as well. So I think a round of applause for all of the hard work.
Special Olympics Manitoba is sending 80 athletes, coaches, and mission staff to Calgary next week. The Winter Games in Alberta are a qualifying event for the upcoming Special Olympics World Winter Games in 2025. The Calgary Games run from February 27th to March 2nd. Riley's got your 7-day forecast, then we've got a daily lift for you still to come. Stay with us.
Well, here's a look at your day planner for your Thursday. Expect winds to start picking up in the morning tomorrow, -5, as you're heading out the door at 8 a.m. By noon, warming up to -1, but north winds gusting to 40, and that's going to be the story of the afternoon tomorrow. Slim chance we could see some flurries through the afternoon tomorrow. Forecast high 2 degrees. Then we see temperatures dipping for Friday down to -7. +6 on the way for Saturday. Temperatures dancing around freezing into next week. Then we see a good chance we could see a little bit of snow moving through into the middle of next week and cooling off to -11 with a sunnier sky by the time we reach next Wednesday. Well, a giant panda cub in China has been dazzling spectators with its gymnastics skills.
Here is your daily lift. Workers at the conservation facility kept a close eye on this aspiring athlete as it moved along this high wooden beam using only his arms. He's very strong, and he looks like they're ready to catch him if he should fall. Impressed visitors recorded this. The cub was born last year at this research center in southwestern China. Come on, little guy, you can get up there. This facility is known for protecting and breeding pandas, red pandas, other endangered animals, and for providing us with a lot of daily lift videos.
Apparently.
Because what do? They're cute.
Yeah.
They're pandas. They're cute.
See you tomorrow.
Have a great night.